Thanks for joining me, guys. We're going to talk about a couple things today. We talk about the incorporation doctrine, the history behind it. I want you guys to understand, what we have at stake right now and what we're seeking to overcome. It has to do with the incorporation doctrine and the lies of the United States Supreme Court. So I want to go over that a little bit this morning. And there's a couple other things, but primarily we're going to focus on the incorporation doctrine today. So if you guys could share, that would be awesome. We're going to start at 10 a.m., so about 2 minutes from right now. If you guys could share, that would be great. We're going to talk about the incorporation doctrine, what it is, the history behind it, and what we have at stake here to overcome, to win, and what the potential outcome would be. I want you guys to understand the incorporation doctrine because largely that's the lies that we're dealing with the United States Supreme Court, and so that's what we're going to talk about. Thanks for joining me, guys. So if you could please share. So this afternoon or this evening, I plan on getting out of here. I'm in Southern California, and I have a few things that I would like to do before I leave, but we are out of money. I'm out completely, guys. So one thing is that I'm having to walk this extremely fine line, you guys, and I can't explain to you guys how vulnerable I am at any given time because I have to maintain this image of power, or they're not going to take me seriously. So lots of times I'm having to do things and not to tell you guys truly my situation, because one, I need you guys to be able to believe in this and have faith in this, and I think we're there. You guys can hear the words, and although we don't have money. Money's not power, you guys. Money's not power. Money is a mechanism to produce results, but it's not power. So I'm not concerned about some of these people that have power or that have money, because that money's gonna prove to be fruitless when it comes time to actually achieve what we're seeking to achieve. Again, power is the product of action. Power is in your words. It's not in money. It's not in guns. It's not in a title. Power is in the ability to influence others in their future decisions. Power is the ability to explain your faith to other people, have them believe in it, and follow and believe in you. So I don't know, you guys, if this is going to be glitchy or not. I don't know. So if it is, I'm sorry. I'm on hotel Wi-Fi right now. But if you guys can. Again, I'm going to have to ask for you guys to help donate, get us out of here. So I already have a ticket out tonight, this evening, heading to the Midwest. We're going to go there and spend a couple days trying to figure out how we're going to exactly overcome the algorithm issue that we talked about yesterday. But I do need to get at least one Uber, if not two Ubers. I'm not gonna have to worry about hotels tonight, which is awesome, great. And I'm not gonna have to worry about hotels for a couple nights. So we'll have some time to be able to, to try to get some money built up. But I've had a number of people that have offered to help, and unfortunately, times are tight, and so we haven't received that yet, and I totally understand. But again. It's very difficult for me to be able to stay focused on the task at hand and achieving it if I don't have the resources to do it. So, all along, from the very beginning of all of this, when I made the decision that I wasn't going to do this for money, and I was going to do it for the right reason, there's a little bit of a story behind that. I have this friend, Tanner Barber, who's in prison, and he's in prison in Washington State, and he was accused of a horrible, horrible crime that I am certain that he was not guilty of, that he didn't do. I'm 100% certain. My heart tells me 100% he didn't do it. And but unfortunately, he was threatened, intimidated, forced into pleading guilty, and and sentenced to a very, very long sentence. Which could have been worse. And one thing that you guys need to understand is that there is a massive law that says that you can't be punished for having rights. You can't be punished for having rights. And so, you know, if you have the right to an indictment by a grand jury because someone has an obligation to ensure that you have, or someone has an obligation to make sure that you have a jury trial, as you know, codified in Amendment 6, as codified in Article 3. You know, if you have the right to a trial by jury, that's your right because someone else has the obligation to do it. So, you know, when they say to you, when a prosecutor says to you, well, you know what, if you plead guilty right now, and if you don't come and testify, and you don't defend yourself, and you don't make us have to actually, you know, deliver on the obligations that we have, then we'll let you go right now. You know, we'll if you sign a plea bargain, we'll let you go, you're free. But if you exercise your rights to defend yourself and make us actually have to do what we're already constitutionally obligated to do, you're going to get punished even more. And so the problem there is that you're absolutely 100% being punished for having a right, because that's what happens. With a plea bargain, they say, oh, well, if you don't come and testify, if you don't defend yourself, if you just say that you're guilty, regardless of whether you're guilty or not, if you do so, we'll let you go, or we'll reduce it, or we won't, you know, have these charges. But if you choose to exercise your rights and defend yourself and make us have to do what we're actually constituted and obligated to do, we're going to punish you even more. We're going to add charges, or we're going to add time, or we're going to sentence you to the maximum amount. And that is absolutely 100% being punished for having a right. And you can never, ever be punished for having a right. They can't punish you for having a duty. And so, you know, in Tanner's case, you know, he was threatened and intimidated into saying that he was guilty, and he wasn't guilty. But, you know, you have to look at the necessary evil. You know, is it better to say this so that I don't have to serve the rest of my life in prison, and I actually have an opportunity to get out? Well, you know, he made a decision. And it's the same decision that millions of people across country do every single day. You know, what happened to the nation that Benjamin Franklin spoke of when he said that it's better that 1,000 guilty go free than for one innocent man being made to suffer? That's not what we have in place today. You know, we have a shift in the burden of proof. We have a shift in the presumption of guilt. And no one's presumed to be innocent because you're immediately arrested without even having the opportunity to be able to confront the accusations against you. You're treated as though you're guilty. You're locked up and forced into an institution because someone else said that you did something, and you've never had the opportunity to be able to confront those accusations against you. And at the end of the day, they don't want you to tell your side of the story, which is absolutely witness tampering, intimidation, coercion, and duress. You know, there's witnesses on both sides. There's witnesses on the defense. There's witnesses on the prosecution, and all witnesses are protected from interference and tampering, intimidation, duress. So if you were to call up the prosecutor's witness, the accuser, and say to them, well, I'll shoot you if you come and testify, you'd go to prison for that. So how is that any different than the prosecutor coming to you directly or indirectly and saying, well, if you come and testify, I'm going to send you to prison for 20 years. You see, what they're doing is they're using an abuse of their powers in order to get you to do what they want through an abuse of, through duress, coercion, and intimidation. That is a crime. It's witness tampering, intimidation. And so, you know, again, every single witness is protected. They're protected from these acts. And, you know, part of my argument from the very beginning, and you guys got to understand that I am an expert in terrorism. I'm an expert in it. That's one of the specialties that I did in my forensics degree. And that's what I did when I was with intelligence. That's what I did when I was with Department of Energy. That's what I did when I was with my company. I dealt with terrorism. And terrorism is quite simply defined as this speaking, the threat or use of threat in order to bring about a desired result from one organization to another organization. So when you use threats or intimidation to bring about a desired result from one group to another group, that is an act of terrorism. And so we have, you know, this understanding, something we've come quite accustomed to here in America, you know, after 9/11 and the knee-jerk overreactions that we had from 9/11, you know, we've come to understand terrorism because it's been brought into our own borders and affected our own citizens in such a dramatic way by our own government. And so, you know, we got to understand that terrorism is not right. Terrorism can be emotional terrorism. Terrorism can be deprivation tactics that are designed to get you to comply with someone else's desired results. And that's exactly what happens every single day. But terrorism is a crime, and it's a pretty serious crime. And so when our own government brings the tactics that we employed in Guantanamo Bay and Camp X-Ray, and we employ those exact same deprivation tactics in every single jail and prison across the country in order to bring about a desired result, because we simply want to we want people to comply with the things that we say that they did, or the person that they say that they are. Well, unfortunately, that is a fucking crime. And it's disgusting at that, because the purpose of our government was not to oppress the people or to place them into a state of fear. And the purpose was to ensure happy life and through good government. So, when government was established for three reasons, that was to protect the life, the liberty, and an environment of happiness for the people of the United States, for the people that reside within the jurisdiction of the United States. That was the purpose of our government. That was the reason why it was enacted and established. So if the purpose of government was to ensure our liberty, right, and protect our liberty, and that was the terms of the contract that established the people, or established the government by and between the people, then when the government breaches their obligation, their first duty, the sole purpose of creating our government, when they breach that duty, thereby breaching the contract in order to enter a new contract to people in order to enslave them, either in institutions or financially, through the collateralization of the people in 1933 from the bankruptcy and the Fed system, when they do that, the contract that they enter into to enslave us and to limit our liberty is actually not void. It's not valid, because it's the result of a breach of the original contract. So government can't breach the terms of the first contract in order to enter into a second contract without breaching both contracts and rendering them both void. If the way in which a contract is formed is illegal, then the contract formed is illegal. And what they have us under today is not consistent with the beliefs of the American people, with the faith of the American people, with what the American people desired or envisioned. And as a result, when you create something then that's in violation or in breach of the terms of the first contract, what you've created is not valid. They're both void. So again, like when you consider lawlessness, right? Lawlessness. When you consider lawlessness, where there is no law, there can't be guilt, right? And so even Scripture talks about this. Where there is no law, there can't be guilt, because only guilt can come from lawfulness. So if government is acting unlawfully because they're acting outside of the terms of the very contract that established them and gives them their authority and creates their office, then what they produce is unlawful. Because where there is unlawfulness, there cannot be lawful outcome. So as long as government continues to act unlawfully, outside of the terms of the contract, outside of the will of the people, then everything they produce is unlawful. There cannot be guilt where there's unlawfulness. So, that's why I say that our government has to understand that crime is a double-edged sword. You can't hold the people accountable for the crimes that they commit if you yourself are committing crimes in the pursuance of the adjudication. Because by your criminal acts, you render void anything that you produce. So if you want to have convictions that are going to be lawful and going to be binding and hold people accountable for the things that you say are wrong that they did, then you have to act in a lawful manner, because where there's lawlessness, there cannot be guilt. And right now, our government is lawless. Absolutely 100% lawless. They're acting outside of the terms of the contract and the parameters of the law. And they can say that they're acting lawfully because a judge made, a ruling and called it law. But once again, that's not law. It's not law, because the judges have no authority to create the law. The people give our consent through the consent of the governed, and we give our consent through the people creating the laws that will govern us and rule over us. And so when it's not the people that creates the law, then that's not the will of the people. And that's contrary to constitutionalism. That's contrary to American. That's contrary to the faith of the people of the United States. All of this is fucking illegal. Unlawful, right? I mean, I hate the term illegal, because, we all know what legality means, but at the end of the day, it is not valid. Whatever you produce, government, is not valid. And so, we have to come to terms with this truth that as long as we are following leaders and permitting leaders that are acting unlawfully to continue to commit unlawful acts, then we're being led in the wrong direction. Government only has the power that the people provide to them. So if we all want to complain about the corrupt nature of government and the things that they're doing to us that hurt us and are wrong, then at the end of the day, we need to understand that it's our fault. because they're only doing what we are permitting them to do. So if we're going to have criminals leading us, then we can expect that we're going to be led toward criminality. And if our leaders are criminals, they're going to lead us toward crime. And that means that we're going to have a society of criminals. The American people aren't bad. And we don't want to go this direction. I believe that with all my heart. But we have to make a decision, especially based upon the knowledge that we have, that if our government are criminals, if our leaders are criminals, that's not the direction we want to go. That's not who we want to put in office. That's not who we want to swear in a few weeks, right? And so, that's why I'm doing this, is because I want the people of the United States to understand that I've informed every single one of these people. Democrat, Republican, doesn't matter. I've informed every single one of them that they're acting outside of law, and therefore their actions are lawless. And not only have they refused to do anything about it, but they've gone out of their way to suppress the things that I'm trying to say because they know that I'm right. And they know that they can't beat this argument. They can't even come and debate me on it because they know they're going to lose. So they're just gambling and betting and praying that this information doesn't come out on a mass level, to where the people of the United States can be woken up from the bullshit ignorance that they've fallen asleep in, and actually come out. Because if this comes out, we don't have to swear those fucking assholes in. We don't have to swear criminals in. Because if you're a criminal, right, and if you've been acting outside of your lawful authority, if you've been violating the Constitution of the United States, you've already implicitly invited punishment in the form of perjury should you fail to fulfill such promise. Every single one of those public officials in Washington, D.C., they've all been notified. Every single one of them in 33 states have been notified. And they've all chosen to do nothing about it, which means they have all committed perjury, every single one of them. And unless they want to step up and mitigate their culpability by choosing to get on the lawful side and standing in opposition of every single other person, which is what I had to do, and it sucks. I get it, public official. I get it. It sucks, right? When you have to stand alone against every fucking everyone that used to be on your side, that you used to work with, right? When you have to stand in opposition, it sucks, guys. But that's a duty that we all have to decide to do, because, we can choose to be honorable men and women. We can choose to honor our word, choose to honor our responsibilities and duties, and do what's right, even if it's a very, very difficult decision. But at the end of the day, you guys, no, they don't have immunity. You're absolutely wrong. But thank you so much for the comment. They don't have immunity. You have no idea and don't understand immunity. But that's okay. You can go into my videos. I talk about immunity extensively, the history behind immunity. Immunity is a lie. It was created by the United States Supreme Court in a ruling. It amended the Constitution of the United States. The Supreme Court has no authority to alter, amend, or destroy the Constitution of the United States. Go ahead and go back, watch my videos on immunity. You'll understand that there is no immunity. That's a lie. All right? If it's a lie, then guess what? You can believe it. You can believe a lie, and you can say, okay, our government can do whatever the fuck they want to do, which you're welcome to do that, but that's not true. All right. Every single person is accountable for the crimes they commit against the people of the United States. That's what an egalitarianism form of government is, right? So there is no immunity, right? There's two different types of immunity. There's civil, there's criminal. They are not criminally immune. They're civilly immune because you sue their master, the one that they're working for the criminal acts that they commit. But no one is immune from criminal liability. No one. So at the end of the day, you guys, one of the things that I'm doing is we got to bring honor back. And each one of us independently, every single one of us that took an oath, we all have to say that, am I going to be an honorable person? Am I going to be a man or woman of my word, right? Am I going to stand by the things that I say? Am I going to fulfill the promises that I make? Am I going to do the right thing? And if I'm not, then, well, you have no authority to be a leader, because only leaders are people of honor. Only leaders do what they say that they'll do. Only leaders make the right decisions, even in very difficult situations that might be contrary to their own financial interests, or might be contrary to their business model. But they do it because they're there in a position to do what's in the best interest of the people, not the business. So, if we continue to have people that focus on what is in the best fiscal interests of our country, as opposed to what's in the best societal interests of our country, we are going to continue to be led toward criminality. We're going to continue to be oppressed in such a manner, because as long as we run government as though it's a business, then the decisions that are going to be made by our government are going to be what's in the best fiscal interests of the country, not the best societal interests of the country, because businesses must generate revenue, and the way that our government generates revenue is at the expense of the citizenry. So government's not a business. It creates no product. It generates no liability. Pays no liability. It produces no revenue. All three of which are requirements for a business, right? Those are the three requirements. And so because our government doesn't produce a product, it pays no liabilities, it generates no revenue, then continuing to call it a business is a lie, right? But when we call it a business, then what happens is that we focus on what's in the best fiscal interest of the country. And therefore, the way that our business government generates revenue is at the expense of citizenry. And that's why you see, like, when people get arrested, lots of times the things they're being arrested for, it's nothing. So you don't have your car registered with the corporation. Who are you hurting, right? When you do that, what damages are being caused? That's a mechanism to generate revenue. You must register your car. Well, why would I have to register my property, my personal property? Government cannot interfere with personal property. So why would I have to go and pay money to use my property? That would be an interference of my use of personal property. And we know government cannot interfere with the use of private property. So, we've been led to believe these things, and we've been told that we have to do these things, but once again, they're a lie. And we can believe the lie and say, okay, well, this is just how it is. We can accept the status quo, or we can say, you know what? Nah, this isn't the life that I want to live. This isn't the path I want to head down, right? I'm not going to continue to make criminals more wealthy. That's not a life that I think that America was meant to live. That's not a path we were meant to be on. So we need to change this path. We need to change the direction. We now stand on the precipice right now of a major crossroads yet again for our country. And we can choose the path of our ancestors, the path that we've been on, the path of enslavement of every single man, woman, child across the country in these institutions and collateralization and birth certificates, all these things that we're very well aware of. We could continue down that path. We can certainly do that. But don't be surprised and don't complain if you're not happy with the life that you or your children end up having to live. Because that's not a life that we get to choose on our own. And that's not freedom. That's not consistent with America or American principles. That's not what we believe in. And so we stand at this precipice and we have an opportunity to decide, is this the way we want to continue to go? And if it's not, then we need to take this opportunity right now to choose a new path of our own. We need to go a different direction. And we need to say, that's not the way we want to go any longer. We have the ability to do that. A lot of people say that this is never going to happen. A lot of people say, oh, this is too big of a deal, right? But at the end of the day, and they say, well, look at how big government is. What can we do against government? Government has no power except for the power that people give them. See, government is nothing. It's nothing at all. But the people that are within government, exercising their power. So if we permit criminals to continue to exercise their power because we just allow them to continue to be criminals and act contrary to our will, then that's what gives government power. But if we don't permit criminals to be in a position of power, then government's power, its oppressive power, goes away instantly. It's gone. Now, another thing is that if we can influence those people in a position of power to say, you know what, this is not what I want to do. This is not the direction I want America to go either. Because every single one of them, they don't want to destroy America. It doesn't matter whether it's Supreme Court, justices. It doesn't matter whether it's the president. None of them want to see the destruction of America, right? But in their ignorance and typically the blinding that they've had because their financial return, their financial interests, and their livelihood, because of that, they don't see how destructive and tyrannical their actions actually are, and how much it's hurting the people of the United States. I've been across this country 19 times now over the past 18 months, and coast to coast, and lots of times I'll go into these capital cities. Capital cities are beautiful, right? They're cleaned up, they're nice, they're spotless, and that's the image that you get of the capital city. But the moment you get outside that capital city, you see how oppressive and depressed this nation actually is. How much these people are suffering. Just yesterday, I'm traveling to Southern California, and we're seeing tent city after tent city after tent city of people that are homeless, starving, without a place to live, in the richest country in the world. How is that possible, right? When Saudi Arabia can house every single one of their citizens, right, and can build every single one of them a house and provide millions of dollars every year in money, right, as a trust for every single person within their society, how is it that America can have people dying, starving on the streets every single day? You know, other than the fact that we're living a life that we are not meant to live. We're living in a society that we aren't supposed to be in. This is not America. But that's because we haven't woken up to this ignorance yet. That's because we haven't addressed the true, the real enemy. And the real enemy is not the people. It's not us. You are not the enemy, right? Sin, that's the enemy. And we can overcome that. But the way we overcome that has been written of 6,000 years ago, right? I mean, we know how to do it. You do it through forgiveness. You do it through kindness. You do it through love, right? Hurting people hurt people. So we want to overcome the issue of criminality. The way we do it is quite simple. You forgive, all right? You forgive. And you act in a compassionate manner. You give respect and you raise people up. You don't push them down. You don't enslave them. You empower them. Because in doing so, that respect that we can give to those other people, that respect is going to cause them to respect themselves, and through the respect of themselves, they will respect others. You guys, it's well known. It's well known within the realm of criminality that is a fact. That's how it works. That's how it works. You know, we can see a lot of nations that have already gone this direction. Israel is a great example, right? Israel it has the community of the kibbutza, right? And within the kibbutza, that is such a peaceful community. I believe that they don't even have a single record of homicide, right? And within the kibbutza, that is such a peaceful community. I believe that they don't even have a single record of homicide within that community in Israel. And if you're convicted of a violent crime within the state of Israel or the country of Israel, they actually sentence you to go and live within the kibbutza because you need to learn how to live peacefully, because the environment that you're in dictates what you learn. So if we're going to live in an environment of criminality because our leaders are criminals, because our leaders are saying that it's okay to buy, sell, and manufacture drugs and create a criminal environment where drugs can be bought, sold, and manufactured in these secret task forces called drug task forces because they want to steal your property from you, right? When we do this and we create this environment, we permit our government to do this shit to us, and then we go and we break the law in the environment that they created, and then they say, oh, we're immune, right? Just like you said there, that they're immune. They're not fucking immune. You're creating a criminal environment to which the people of the United States are committing crime, but for your crimes, there wouldn't be crime. Our government has bought, sold, and manufactured more drugs than the Colombian cartels. That's a truth. That's a fact. We know this. The CIA in the 1960s was bringing crack cocaine and dropping it on the streets of Los Angeles, New York, right, to enslave the people of the United States through drug addiction. And then what did they do? They turned around and they criminalized that. There's people sitting in prison right now today for one single hit of crack, right? One single hit of crack for the first offense that they've ever been arrested for. That's how bad this government criminalized the drugs, right? The drugs aren't the problem. The drugs are the symptom. But when you criminalize the people and say you're just a piece of shit for being unhappy, so we're going to take an unhappy person, we're going to put him into an unhappy situation, and we're going to tell the whole rest of the world that they're nothing but a piece of shit. Forget about him and just lock him away for the rest. That's not fixing our fucking problem. That's not fixing our country. And you're absolutely right. You know, I hate to go into this. You guys, you got to understand, I'm going to tell you a little bit of truth, right? And I don't care if I tell some stuff that might be a little bit sensitive to government. But I will not breach my oath. Whoever's watching this, I'm not going to tell things that are classified, but I'm going to tell you right now. What happened in Vietnam during that period of time was the primary exporter of poppy seeds, right? They're primarily and what does poppy make? It makes heroin, right? Makes heroin. So when our government wanted heroin, we needed to go into Vietnam, so we had a mechanism to be able to get that poppy and that stuff out of it, right? Oh, well, so now they say that I'm not, you guys can't recommend my thing anymore, this live, because they say that I've somehow, hang on here, doesn't contain anything. So what happened was that we started, and I just submitted feedback. We'll see if TikTok's going to continue to restrict my account here in just a moment, guys. So it is what it is. You guys can't share, and they like to block me. So if I go off, you guys, I'm sorry. But so the thing is that Vietnam was all about collecting this poppy, right? So we could produce the heroin that we needed, bring it back here to the United States, so we could start dumping it onto the streets, right? So we could enslave the people of the United States. That's what we did, right? Our own government did that to our own people, and that's well known. It's well known, you guys. You all can read about it. You can all see this is what happened. So then what happens is that the largest producer of heroin within America, in the 1990s was Afghanistan. They were producing roughly 80% of the heroin here in America, right? But then when the Russians came in and invaded Afghanistan, right, the production went down, significantly went down. Significantly. It dropped down to like 12% or something like that. So they went from 80% of the world's opium production down to about 12%, and we couldn't have that because we were starting to go into the OxyContin period of time, all these other things that we were actually morphing these into pharmaceutical heroin, so we could addict the society on this. So we could enslave the societies into drug use, so we could lead to mass incarceration and the enslavement of the people in these for-profit industries for the direct benefit of the state. That's what we were doing. So when we saw the reduction from 80% down to 12%, well, we need to do something about that, right? So what happens then? We provide all weapons to Afghanistan, all the guerrilla forces, right? And we train them, teach them how to do it so that they can overcome Russia. And now we have, what we thought was going to be a group that would be compliant because we helped them. America helped them. CIA provided all the weapons. So now we have back to an 80% production rate. Well, what we didn't expect was that the Taliban was not going to comply with us, right? They weren't going to turn around and produce because the Taliban didn't want drugs. I mean, if you're caught with drugs within Afghanistan, even marijuana, you're executed. Like they didn't want drugs. So the fact that we were asking them to produce the very thing that they are so deeply against wasn't going to work with the group that had been brought in and to lead the country as a result of the work that we did, and that made us upset. So now we needed to find a different way to be able to get the opium production back up because America needed to be able to enslave all these people. We needed to be able to provide the opium that we needed to be able to, enslave the people and provide this OxyContins and all the rest of these things that we were doing to kill and fucking enslave our own people. That's what we were doing. So, I mean, we found that. We found that opportunity through a couple of different places. I mean, the war on terror, great example. And I'm not going to go into the theories or the issues behind that. But let's just say that it was a good opportunity, whether it was a white flag or not. It was a good opportunity for us to come in under the guise of terrorism, so that we could remove the group that was not producing the products that we wanted, and instill a different group that would actually get the opium production back up. And that's exactly what happened. After we invaded the Taliban, or after we invaded Afghanistan, and we removed the Taliban, who was not producing the opium, we instilled our own government, right? With Karzai and all the rest. And all of a sudden, we see Afghanistan spike up to 90% of the world's opium production. So now all of a sudden, we're back in business. Business is good again, right? Now we're able to continue this enslavement of the people of the United States. We're able to continue to do these things, right? And once again, this is our own government doing this shit to our own people. I have a lot of friends, especially now that this is a world that I'm not aware of. This is not a world I came from, right? I've never been addicted to anything other than my wife. I've been addicted to love. I mean, but I understand addiction now because of the things that I've experienced, because of the addiction that I had when I felt something and I believed in something that wasn't real, right? It wasn't real what I had. She didn't love me, and I get that now. But I had to come to understand, addiction through this, right? Through this this believing in something that wasn't real, and then chasing after, trying to find it again, not understanding that I will never find it again because what I was feeling wasn't real. And that's what an addiction is. right? So you run around, you're searching for something, you're paying and doing things, trying to get something that was never real to begin with, chasing that feeling. And so I've come to understand it, but but the thing is that our own country was doing this, and I've had a lot of friends that are addicted to serious drugs, heroin and fentanyl, and I've sat there with friends, very, very dear friends of mine, that are overdosing on fentanyl, and I'm having to try to figure out, what the fuck do I do? How do I deal with this person? And then in the back of my mind, I'm realizing that it's our own government. The government that I used to work for, that I used to fight for, the very agencies that I used to be employed by, are killing this fucking person that I love sitting on my lap as I'm trying to cool him down. I want some of these public officials to come down and start rubbing the heads of these fentanyl people overdosing. I want them to feel the same things I have had to feel, because I think that they might come to believe and do something a little bit different. If they don't, then God fucking help them. God help them. Because once again, the way you treat your people is a direct reflection of how much you love your country. And if a patriot is defined as one who loves and defends his country, these people don't love this country at all. And anybody that doesn't love this country should not be in a position of authority for this country, shouldn't be leading the people. These people don't love this country at all. And anybody that doesn't love this country should not be in a position of authority for this country, shouldn't be leading the people. These people don't love this country at all. And anybody that doesn't love this country should not be in a position of authority for this country, shouldn't be leading the people of the United States, because people love this country. Whoever to be leading our. So what happened? We spiked back up to 90%, right? 90% of opium production is now being produced by them. We're back in business, enslaving the people of the United States. But what happened then is that we knew, our government knew in the mid-90s that the public was becoming more accommodating to drug use, because so many people were becoming addicted, because so many people were hurting, right? And we're looking at that the public was becoming more accommodating to drug use, because so many people were becoming addicted, because so many people were hurting, right? And we're looking for an artificial mechanism to be happy, because it's not normal for a human being to be unhappy. Therefore, when we are unhappy, we search for an artificial mechanism to be happy. We try to fill that void that's missing within us. We want to be happy once again. So we look for an artificial mechanism to make ourselves happy, right? And that's what drug use is. Everybody does it. Everybody's hurting. Everybody has some sort of trauma. Some people seek an artificial mechanism through alcohol. Some people through heroin. Some people through fentanyl. Some people through marijuana. Everybody has some sort of trauma that's deeply embedded within them, from pain that they've experienced within their life that has never been healed, right? And as a result, we seek these artificial mechanisms to make ourselves happy, because that's the way that we naturally want to feel. So if that's true, then what happened was that our government realized the way that we naturally want to feel. So if that's true, then what happened was that our government realized in the mid-90s that they're probably going to drugs. It was going to happen because the public was becoming more accommodating. But up until that point, the driver for mass incarceration had been drug use, right? Because it was easy for the judges to say, oh, he's just a drug addict. Who's going to stick up for a drug addict, right? That was their narrative that they created within the 1960s and 70s. Who's going to stick up for a drug addict? So if that was the narrative that they created during that period of time, right? Who's going to stick up for them? Then they needed to find a new narrative, something else that would now facilitate mass incarceration. Who would stick up for this type of a person? They found it in the early 2000s. In a case that came to the United States Supreme Court that said, is porn legal? Porn legal? Supreme Court said, absolutely it is. This is a perfect opportunity right here. And so they said it is, right? They said it's just a matter of freedom of speech. That's all it is, just a freedom of speech. That's all it is. So as a result, yeah, porn's legal. And so then they flooded every single house across the country with porn, right? Images of sexual deviance, right? All across the country. Every single child could see it by just simply logging onto their computer or their phone. Every adult could do it by just simply opening up their phone, right? And the thing is that the Supreme Court, they don't make decisions that are in the best interest of the people. You guys, you got to understand, this institution is not what we think it is. If they are the moral protagonists for a country and they're supposed to be leading our country into morality, is it the best moral decision to say that we want to create an environment of sexual deviance because they knew that if you create an environment of sexual deviance, you will eventually produce sexual deviance. And who's going to stick up for a sex offender, right? Who's going to stick up for a sex offender? Because you can say to someone, well, you can look, but don't touch, right? You can see these images and already have a predisposition toward sexual deviance, but at the end of the day, do not act on it. And that's not the way things work. When you already have a predisposition towards sexual deviance, then people are going to move in that direction. And now today, you guys, the majority of people that are going to prison are going there for something related to sexual deviance. Because that's the new driver. That's the new mass incarceration. That's the new addiction that they're bringing into our nation, right? And we can all resonate with that because we're all looking for love. We all want this thing that's elusive, right? Something that's free to make, something that's free to give and free to receive, and yet we can't fucking find it anywhere because it's so elusive. Because we're all just hurting, right? And hurting people hurt people. So as we run around trying to find this thing that's elusive, that's going to make us happy, right? Because we're so sad because we don't have it, then we're looking in the wrong way. And government knew that. Government knew that you guys were going to be addicted to this shit. They knew that you were going to get addicted to this instantly because they knew that this was a mechanism that they could use to enslave every man, woman, child, to create an addiction, an addicted society. So they could say, okay, look but don't touch. So we can create an environment of sexual deviance and eventually produce a society of sexual deviance. Supreme Court is not the moral protagonist for a country. They're not the moral leaders for a country. We need to understand that the things that they say, the decisions that they make are not in the best interest of the people. They're not what the people need. They're not leading our people in a good direction. Say the decisions that they make are not in the best interest of the people. They're not what the people need. They're not leading our people in a good direction. Say the decisions that they make are not in the best interest of the people. They're not what the people need. They're not leading our people in a good direction because they up this business, and that business increase in the last 30 years. Business is booming for them, and they don't want this information to come the fuck out. They don't want you guys to know this truth. They don't want you guys to hear the things I have to say because they can't argue with this. So they're doing everything they can to keep me quiet, to keep me suppressed, right? To not give me money, to fuck my accounts, to steal all my property, to take all my cars. But you know what? That doesn't change my faith. It doesn't change who I am. It doesn't change the reason why I'm doing this. I'm doing this because there's an awful lot of truth that people in the United States needs to come to terms with. And that is that what we believe in, it isn't real, you guys. Justice is simply a compromise between two evils. Good and bad are both evil, right? Good and bad are both evil. Good is evil because if what we call good is out there killing people with absolute impunity, right? Good and bad are both evil. Good is evil because if what we call good is out there killing people with absolute impunity, it can't. Good is incapable of such. So when we say that of the 1,500 people that have been executed by our nation since the late 70s, since the death penalty has been reinstated, when we say that 139 of them have been proven to have been innocent after they were murdered, that's not good. That's evil. Of the remaining, another 186 have been proven to have been innocent and exonerated after being placed on death row. That's not good. That's evil. And those two numbers alone, that represents 18% of the people that have been placed onto death row in this country since the late 70s that have been factually innocent. What happened to the nation that Benjamin Franklin spoke of when he said that it's better 1,000 go free than for one innocent man to be made to suffer? If that was the founding principles that we had from our founders that were there in the Constitutional Congress, that were creating the laws that are going to protect the individual liberties of the people of the United States by limiting the powers of government, what happened to that nation? Didn't Benjamin Franklin also say that he created a republic if we can keep it? It seemed to me like we're not fucking. Didn't Benjamin Franklin also say that he created a republic if we can keep it? It seemed to me like we're not fucking doing our part. Have a democracy. A democracy is mob rule. A democracy is a swinging of the pendulum from one tyrant to another. It's trading one tyrant for another in cycles. One person comes into power and it swings in one direction, and then they build one tyrant for another in cycles. One person comes into power and it swings in one direction, and then they villainize the other half. That creates division, it creates conflict, it creates tension, it creates war, it creates death and destruction. And it always, always, always leads to the destruction of the nation. Every single democracy in the history of the world has been destroyed at the hands of the people because of an overbearing and oppressive government. There's 4 stages of a democratic government. The 4th and final stage is the tyrant. We've entered into the tyrant. We've entered a tyrant. Our nation's not going to make it 4 more years. 4th and final stage is the tyrant. We've entered into the tyrant. We've entered a tyrant. Our nation is not going to make it 4 more years. The 4th and final stage is the tyrant. We've entered into the tyrant. We've entered a tyrant. Our nation is not going to make it 4 more years. It doesn't matter waking those that are elected up and saying to them, if you want to continue down this path, we will not permit you to continue to lead us. It doesn't matter waking those that are elected up and saying to them, if you're going to continue to lead us down this path, then we're going to make sure that we change course right now. Because we don't want to see the destruction of our nation. We don't want to see 50 autonomous nations all independent and fighting with one another like we were during 1776 and the Confederacy, the original Confederacy of nation. We overcame that. But any nation that doesn't learn from mistakes is going to repeat it. And we're repeating these mistakes over and over and over again because we have our nation. We overcame that. But any nation that doesn't learn from mistakes is going to repeat it. We're repeating these mistakes over and over and over again because we haven't understood the enemy. The enemy's not people. These mistakes, I'm going to repeat it. And we're repeating these mistakes over and over and over again because we haven't understood the enemy. The enemy's not people. We are not the enemy. Take a page from them and understand who the enemy really is. It's not the people. It's an overbearing government that removes freedom through tyranny and oppression. It's an overbearing government that removes freedom through tyranny and oppression. And that's what we have. But it's not a world we have to live in. It's not a world we have to live in. Because we, the people, control our destiny. Because we, people, get government, the ability to govern through the consent of government. We can change course. We can choose to do something different. We can take a different path if we wake up and we realize that this is not the path we want to change course. We can choose to do something different. We can take a different path if we wake up and realize that this is not the path we want to be on. Different. We can take a different path if we wake up and realize that this is not the path we want to be on. We continue down this. If we move forward with more of the same, then don't be surprised if it's not the world that you expect. If we move forward with more of the same, then don't be surprised if it's not the world that you expect. Living in an illusion and wondering why everything's crazy and chaotic. Because chaos is the result of living in a world of illusion. And if our government creates delusion and leads us down through our own ignorance, and we fail to recognize the fact that what makes America great is our ability to communicate, our ability to work together as a nation of many, many different types of people from many different parts of the world. We have America great is our ability to communicate, our ability to work together as a nation of many, many different types of people from many different parts of the world. We have America great is our ability to communicate, our ability to work together as a nation of many, many different types of people from many different parts of the world. We have a highly diverse nation. We have a highly diverse nation. Demographic. All kinds of people within our nation. All kinds of races. All great. All we have to be able to come up with the best solutions in the fucking world because of our ability to be able to come together and debate an issue and understand. Up with the best solutions in the fucking world because of our ability to be able to come together and debate an issue and understand that every single person within society has a good understanding because they bring it from all corners of the world in this one nation. We're not limited to one race or one demographic. We have everybody here. But what makes America great is our ability in this one nation. We're not limited to one race or one demographic. We have everybody here. But what makes America great is our ability to communicate, our ability to speak. Right. That's why the founders and forefathers protected our freedom of speech with such power. Right. is because our ability to speak is at the forefront of our ability to be great, expressing our ideas, even to people that don't want to hear them. I mean, if the First Amendment and the freedom of speech means anything, it's the ability to be able to communicate ideas that might be contrary to what someone else wants to hear. You know, but that's a necessary thing because when you look at the swinging of the pendulum, right, and you look at the fact that when we swing one direction, we villainize thing because when you look at the swinging of the pendulum, right, and you look at the fact that when we swing one direction, we villainize thing because when you look at the swinging of the pendulum, right, and you look at the fact that when we swing one direction, we villainize thing because when you look at the swinging of the pendulum, right, and you look at the fact that when we swing one direction, we villainize and we're half of ourselves as we continue to swing. For instance, the President of the United States, his role is not to villainize half our people. His role is to bring unity amongst the people, right? To accept the fact that you represent half these people. We can't talk derogatory about half the nation because that's not going to bring unity. That's not going to bring peace. That's not going to bring, greatness. So we need leaders that are going to say, you know what? I represent every person, not just the people I agree with, but every person. And sometimes leaders need to say that I'm going to lead, right? And I'm going to do things that may not be consistent with my own beliefs, right? But I'm going to listen to what's being said, right? I'm going to consider what's being said. And if the cumulative group says that that's what they want because that's what's in the best interest of the people, then maybe I need to make decisions that are going to be all right with something that I don't necessarily believe in, right? That I don't, but because it's in the best interest of the people. We gotta be able to do this. Our nation's made up of liberal people, and we need liberal thinking because we need people that are going to care. Our nation's made up of liberal people, and we need liberal thinking because we need people that are going to care about poor and the underprivileged. We need people who are going to be able to do that, right? They're going to be focused on that sort of thing. But when we need conservatives, because we need to know we've got limited resources, right? We got limited resources, and we need to be able to focus on the fact that those limited resources need to be preserved and protected. But when we don't consider both sides, right? When we don't consider the fact that our nation is made up of two different, largely, vastly differing perspectives, then we can't come together to be able to come up with the best solutions anymore. We can't come together to say, this is what's in the best interest of the people, and not what's in the best interest of the business. And so, as I go around this country and I collect this evidence, I'm not doing this to get anybody into trouble. I'm not doing this to thwart any will of the people. I'm doing this so that we can bring attention to this, so that we can actually engage in this discussion, have this debate, talk once again about what we truly want and what we truly believe in. Because I don't believe that the direction we're going is what the people of the United States want, because we don't realize that we're just simply swinging this pendulum back and forth. When we say that we're going a completely different direction, we are. We're going the exact opposite direction. But that's not making America, powerful, because all we're doing is trading one tyrant for another. We're going from one end of the spectrum to the other end of the spectrum. We're doing the exact same thing over again by saying we're going to villainize half the people from the opposite direction. We can't do this anymore. This is what's destroying the country. This is the destruction of the democratic government. This is the fourth phase of the democratic government. We don't have a democratic government. We have a Republican form of government, which means that every regional government has equal say within the central government, because it's not about political party. It's not about Democratic or Republican. It's about the needs of your people. If you represent the state of Rhode Island, you are in the central government so that you can speak on what your fucking people need in Rhode Island, not so that you can agree with a party or another. If you're there from the state of California, you're not there so that you can force everybody else to do what you want because you have the largest majority of the population. Therefore, you're there so that you can force everybody else to do what you want because you have the largest majority of the population. Therefore, you're there so that you can force everybody else to do what you want because you have the largest majority of the population. Therefore, you believe you have the power. No, you're an equal say in it. You're there so that your people power say than any one of power say than any one of the others. Application of power through the swinging of the pendulum. Then we have people such as the state of North Carolina that says, I don't agree with what California's doing and imposing upon the rest of the nation. I don't want to participate in the central government because I'm not going to do what they say because I don't agree with what they want. That's why we needed an equal represented government with all these regional governments, all 50 of them, all having equal say within the central government, so we can all make sure that the people in the state of Hawaii, that they have a voice as well, and said that they have an equal voice and that they can be heard and their needs can be understood. And if they have good ideas, then you know what? Maybe the rest of the nation needs to take the ideas of them, even though they don't have, and their needs can be understood. And if they have good ideas, then you know what? Maybe the rest of the nation needs to take the ideas of them, even though they don't have the high, and their needs can be understood. And if they have good ideas, then you know what? Maybe the rest of the nation needs to take the ideas of them, even though they don't have the highest population of people. Maybe tells the staff to do simply because they have the majority of people. That of them, even though they don't have the highest population of people. Maybe tells the staff to do simply because they have the majority of people. That's not how it works. The Democratic government is destroyed. Every single one in the history of the world has been destroyed. I don't want to see the country destroyed. So I have to check out here in about 10 minutes, okay? We didn't get to what I wanted to do, but we let God lead us in the direction that He wants to go. And I think that this was a good conversation. And I just want you guys to know that that God lead us in the direction that He wants us to go. And I think that this was a good conversation. And I just want you guys to know that that He wants us to go. I think that this was a good conversation. And I just want you guys to know that that we every single one of us. We need to take a look at ourselves. We need to we every single one of us. We need to take a look at ourselves. We need to do I have honor? And if I don't, then we need to ask ourselves, is that who we want to be? Because the American people are not dishonorable people. American people are not criminals. But if we're led toward criminality because we don't recognize the fact that we're not living up to the things that we say, we're not holding people accountable for things they do, that we're not making the best decisions for our neighbors, right? Because we just simply accept status quo. That's not what you guys are. That's not what the American people are. And I don't think that's what we want to be. So we wake up and we can say, you know what? Whatever happens in the next couple months, so we can wake up and we can say, you know what? Whatever happens in the next couple months is. So we can wake up and we can say, you know what? Whatever happens in the next couple months is exactly happen because we permit to happen. All of us. So, we can permit to happen. All of us. So, we can make it, we can to say, before we swear you in, you are going to swear and you're going to start talking about this issue and you're going to comply with what the people's will is, or we'll be goddamned if you're going to be elected into anything, if you're going to be sworn into anything. Because all you got to do is just say you are going to obey the will of the people, and the will of the people is 4 pages long. 4 pages. If you want us to obey 800 million pages of law, you will obey 4 pages of law. You're not going to ignore it. You're not going to pretend like it's not happening, right? You're not going to go about just praying that nobody hears about it, that it doesn't come forward. No, we're not going to permit that. You're going to obey what the people want. You're going to obey 4 pages of law that the people have created that grant your office in